Do you like a relaxing night in playing board games? Or are you more of a binging reality competition TV series kind of person? Either way, this episode lets you bring out your competitive side. Hi everyone, and welcome to episode 15 of Channeling Hallmark, the podcast where we talk about all the things that make us feel warm and fuzzy, like when you have a nice game night with friends. We're your hosts, Dylan Cashpaw
and Keetin Markey.
And today we are talking to Nick Metzler, a board game designer who is also on the new Hulu series Got to Get Out. Nick actually has a personal connection to us because he designed a murder mystery game for us the night before our wedding. And Keetin, I forget, who won that?
We definitely won. And we did tell Nick that he could not give us clues or give us secrets or anything. And it was not only some hard puzzles, but physically exhausting running around the castle.
Well, I also want to brag that I did it while also carrying a 3-year-old for most of that.
Yes, the flower
named
girl.
Clover. Mm-hmm. And we had a good time together. So maybe actually technically we did cheat because Clover probably helped.
She was our 5th team member.
Yeah, so
of course.
That's true. Anyways, we will also be reviewing a board game themed Hallmark movie from 2023 called Game of Love. But before we get to that, Keetin, do we have some tea that we're drinking today?
Yes, we do. This tea, we had another superfruit tea a couple weeks ago when I first started getting sick, and I'm finally getting over this sickness. So I figured I'd bring one back in to just kick it to the curb. But this is pomegranate tea, superfruit tea, green tea with pomegranate, potent pomegranate from the Republic of Tea. Actually, you have it in your hand. Why don't you let us listen?
Ooh, okay.
It's more green tea
than
than
pretty
pomegranate.
Mild pomegranate
very
flavor,
mild.
I would say. Which is kind of nice. Like, I'm not big on overly fruity flavors in my teas, and this
fair.
just kind of, it's a pretty solid green tea.
Yeah.
I would say not one of my favorite teas that we've had, though, to be honest.
I don't disagree with you. I think the other superfruit tea we had was better. But again, never mad at a nice cup of tea.
Yeah, tea is always good, but there's other teas maybe that I'd rather have.
We've sipped the tea. Are you ready to share your hot cocoa?
Yeah, do you want me to go first?
Sure.
My hot cocoa this week is something that made me really excited when I saw it because it meant that we get to bring one of our favorite guests back on the podcast. And that is the announcement that Hallmark is partnering with the Buffalo Bills for another football-themed Hallmark movie this holiday season, which, if you listen to our review of Holiday Touchdown, A Kansas City Chiefs Love Story, you know that we were big fans of that movie. It was ridiculous and fun and honestly emotionally moving. And I have the exact same expectations for whatever the Buffalo Bills Hallmark movie is called. I don't know anything about the Buffalo Bills, but to be honest, I also didn't really know anything about the Kansas City Chiefs. So very excited for that.
And we also got my old friend Scooter Magruder to watch not only one Hallmark movie, but also a Lifetime movie. And I think he was emotionally stirred by the Chiefs movie. You both had kind of a moment at the end of that review together.
I think I actually already warned him that he should start emotionally preparing for this movie. So don't worry. Scooter is preparing himself.
Okay, good. He's got a whole year to do it. I just feel bad that, it wasn't the Dallas Cowboys that decided to make the movie. Maybe next year. We'll hope for that.
At this rate, I feel like every year there's going to be a different NFL team in a Hallmark movie, and I'm here for it. Keetin, what's your hot cocoa?
So my hot cocoa is I was out or working from home all last week because I was sick, and one of the favorite things that I discovered, and I knew this was a thing, was the Friends of Big Bear Eagle Cam.
Oh, yeah.
And this eagle couple had initially laid 3 eggs. All 3 hatched. One of them sadly didn't make it, but there's 2 other chicks that have a live feed camera with a beautiful view. You can go on YouTube and watch anytime at Friends of Big Bear. And it brings me so much joy, and especially when I was homesick and I just wanted something on in the background, I checked on my chicks, and they're so big, and it's crazy to me how big they've grown, and it just makes me feel warm and fuzzy, and I just want them to stay healthy and alive, and I'm so proud of mom and dad, and it's a really cool thing to be able to witness.
Yeah, I mean, as of this recording, the two chicks that are remaining do look very strong, healthy. They're pretty big now,
They're
too. They have
big.
grown fast.
Like so fast. But yeah, Friends of Big Bear, the Eagle Cam, check it out. It will bring you joy. I promise.
Definitely.
Shall we get into this film?
Yeah, I am so ready to talk about Game of Love. Keaton, can you tell us about it?
Well, when Audrey, a bitter board game designer, is forced to make a game about love, she turns to Matthew, the team's marketing consultant, for help. But making a game about love without having experienced love proves to be quite a challenge. That is, until feelings start to grow.
Starring Kimberly Sustad and Brooks Darnell, this Jason Bourquet directed Hallmark movie is a love story for board game nerds. Nope. Is a love story for board game nerds. Well, Keaton and I have spent many nights playing board games with friends and also cozy nights alone. Though Keaton is actually probably the most competitive person I've ever met. So, Keaton, do you think that board games are a good way to get to know each other, or does the competitive nature make it more of a recipe for animosity?
Um, so I will say it's a great way to get to know each other. Actually, my first kind of group of Los Angeles friends, and a lot of people who I now consider kind of my LA family, and even people who've left LA, they're still, I feel like they're family, my family friends. I met through a board game group, and I will always be very grateful for that board game group and the group of friends that I've been able to create. But I am notoriously competitive to the point where
Yes.
sometimes I made people upset that I was so competitive. I think I've grown out of my competitiveness, though, slightly. I've gotten much better and more mature about it. I think I have.
Have you?
I think I have. I think I have. Yeah, I think board games are some of the best ways to get to know each other. And, I just advise people before we start, I will kick your ass, and I really love games, and I'm going to be competitive. So.
Yeah, so in this movie, the main story is that they are designing a board game about love.
Yes.
And kind of the goal is, oh, we want people to get to know each other and maybe fall in love while playing the board game. And I love that idea. And as much as we do spend a lot of cozy nights in playing board games together that I do love, I don't know if I think of board games necessarily as the greatest place to grow a relationship in some ways, because I do feel like there is a little bit of a competitiveness that comes out in those.
I think that's the benefit of playing different board games, because every different type of board game, whether it's a board game, whether it's like a social deduction game, like whatever type of game it might be, you're getting to know somebody in a different way. You're seeing their strategy, how they work with people, how they work against people. I think it's a very quick way to get a study of a person and like find there are many of those board game nights where I was like, oh, I'm going to be friends with them, but I never want to hang out with them again. You figured that out very quickly. And I'm sure a lot of people came to those board games and are like nights and were like, I never want to see Keetin Markey again. I'm sure I can be a lot in a board game night, and in my early 20s, even more so.
Now, that being said, I do find board games to be warm and cozy. I do find Hallmark movies to be warm and cozy. I do find love to be warm and cozy. So this movie did have a lot of warm and cozy things thrown together in a way that I actually really liked. I really enjoyed seeing the games that they were playing, and they had actual like real board games that we have played in the background of shots. So it was kind of this fun, like, oh, I see Ticket to Ride, or oh, there's Junk Art. So it was really fun just to watch this movie, as I wouldn't quite call myself a board game nerd, but a board game fan.
Yeah. I also really enjoyed our two leads. And I think this might be one of the first Hallmark movies I've seen where I really, really loved both the leads, but they had zero chemistry. But I was okay with it because I just enjoyed them so much. And I thought it was a really tight script. I thought it was very fun. I really liked the side characters. Like this was kind of like, to me, hit the Hallmark kind of structure perfectly and just really nailed it. It nailed it. And it was everything I would expect and want in a Hallmark board game movie about love. And I'm not even mad that they didn't have any chemistry. I'm so happy they ended up together in the end.
Yeah, despite the fact that they didn't have chemistry with each other, they were both very charming. engaging performances, and I liked them both. I hope to see him in more things.
Yeah, I really love those side characters. They were adorable. The two board game groupies with them who were just like obsessed with the main character with Audrey. They're kind of like geeking out about her. But yeah, I just really loved. They were so cute, and you could tell their comedy was really good. And when you can take a smaller role like that and you really make it your own and you stand out the way both of them did, kudos to you, because that's how you get the lead in the next Hallmark movie, and I hope I can see them in more.
Yeah, the company that made the board games, the atmosphere and the people there kind of made me think, maybe I should have gotten into making board games. I don't think I'd be very good at it, but I did enjoy the atmosphere of that vibe, I guess.
I don't know how realistic that was. This was one thing I want to talk about because it felt like a very fake version of how you make board games, especially after talking with a friend who does actually make board games. But I will say a lot of it seemed like true, like her dropping off a prototype of a board game for her to try and give notes on. Our friend Nick has done that to us, or come over and played games with us to get our feedback. So that's what board game creators actually do. And so it was kind of fun to see that they did stick to that. But I don't know if there's any board game companies that make enough money to have an office space like that and
That's true.
full-time employees like that. I think often they contract people in, similar to our marketing guy, to make these board games.
Yeah, at least from my very limited understanding, I don't know if the board game industry is the most lucrative industry.
Yes.
But it does seem like a very fun, cozy industry.
Absolutely.
And we'll have to talk to Nick a little bit about what it is like to actually design board games. But we don't want to get there yet.
No.
I guess the other thing that I want to call out is the dinner scene where they go to a bougie French restaurant.
Oh, yes.
And they are mistaken for food critics, and thus they just start receiving lots of free food. I loved that scene just because it is our dream, but also we've experienced something similar to that where we once went to a pretty bougie restaurant in Venice, California, and knew someone that worked there who just kept being like, oh, you want this? Cool, I'll give you that, but I'm also going to give you these two other things. So we left that meal having, not paid for all of it, but paid for still a reasonable amount, but getting so much food that we were rolling out of there.
We rolled out of that meal. But Dylan and I, that's one thing that, I think this is something we've discovered since we've been married, is we are foodies. We love a bougie meal. We don't love spending the money for a bougie meal all the time, but we really love the experience when there is really a lot of care and effort put into whether it's the appearance of the dish, the taste of the dish, also the service. We really, really respect that, and we love that, and we try to do it every once in a while and do a date night. And so that would have been our dream date when we were watching.
This movie was kind of it was almost made for us. Board games, date night, having lots of different foods. Pretty sure the guy was a runner, And
also he was his real dream was to be a space photographer, and they had that date.
And he worked in marketing.
Yeah, which is basically you. I don't work in board games, but
not yet.
I have pitched board games before. So I've worked adjacent, I guess, to board games, and I've pitched games on the shows I've worked on. So
that's true.
Some of them that have gone to air.
You do make games, even if not board games.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, Keetin, do you have a marshmallow rating for this that you want to share?
I'm going to give this 7.
Okay.
Out of 10 marshmallows. And mainly because I did not believe that these two would ever date in real life. They friend zoned at each other very quickly, and they had the friend chemistry. But I really love seeing a movie about board games. Which is a warm and cozy thing for me. I thought the game was not the smartest thing, but I would probably try to play it. But yeah, and I just related with a lot of the things that they really liked because we really liked.
Yeah.
So 7.
I feel like I'm going to have to give it a 7 as well. Only because I keep thinking about the recent things that I've given a little bit higher to. And I think I gave Bend It Like Beckham 8.
How dare you?
I know, and now I'm regretting that.
How
because
dare you?
I do think I liked Bend It Like Beckham on a warm and fuzzy scale just a little bit more than this. So I feel like I have to give this a 7. 7 marshmallows for me as well.
It was great. but it didn't like do anything to surprise me, which, you know, a lot of times that is the warm and cozy you want. You don't want to be surprised. But yeah, it was, I highly recommend watching it. It had a lot of stars on Amazon. So I think like 4.5. So you might enjoy it. It's a tight 90, you know?
Yeah. Recommend.
Throw it
Definitely
on,
recommend.
play a board game while you watch.
Well, now that we've talked about Game of Love in this fictional Hallmark board game making world, let's talk to a real board game designer.
When we come back, we're going to be talking with Nick Metzler. Stay tuned.
Here on Channeling Hallmark, we love games, but not as much as today's guest, Nick Metzler. Nick designs games, posts content about games, and likes playing games so much that he recently lived with strangers and cameras in a house playing a game for the new show Got to Get Out. So Nick, as a master of games, what makes Gotta Get Out special?
Got to Get Out is super special because of one key thing, and that is the idea that you can bring accomplices with you on your way out. So if you can get out of those front gates, you earn whatever's in the pot, and you're allowed to bring up to 3 people with you, which just completely changes the way that most of these reality show games are run. Typically, you're trying to go for the win, and there's only one person. But in this game, you can literally make alliances and make teams and switch those teams midway through. And I think that's just such a really unique concept that hasn't been explored enough in reality show games.
I am so excited for this show.
I know, like as a reality competition fan, I feel like you saying that, who is, of all the people I know, the biggest expert on games, that makes me hopeful for this.
I love games, obviously. I've been a game designer for my entire life since I was the age of 4. And I've played a lot of different games out there. I've designed a lot of games too. But I haven't seen a lot of games where they allow you to team up during the game. And that is such a cool, unique concept that hasn't been involved in a lot of games. I've made a couple, but I haven't seen it in market. And that to me is like, ooh, this is going to start a new wave of different types of games hitting market, both in reality show games as well as video games, maybe also in board games.
So how did you said you've been into games and making games since you were a kid. Do you remember the first game that really kind of captured your heart and got you into this and started this kind of trajectory of your life?
Yeah, it's a really good question, actually. My first game that I ever made, I was super addicted to like the Mario 8-bit video game, Super Mario Bros. And I was doing this when I was 4, right? And I always had ideas on how to make the levels better. And better at that time was just more of what I wanted, right? So I took large sheets of paper and I drew out on massive sheets all across the floor, giant levels of Mario. And I put a puppet Mario on my finger and gave my parents a cardboard controller and had them shout out A and B as I moved the puppet across the screen. So they were very supportive of that. But a couple years later, I realized that was really boring for everybody except me. So I started looking around for like, okay, well, what do other people find fun? And that's how I kind of stumbled into board game design. I made a version of chess that wasn't as slow. I called it Extreme Chess. It was super, super fun. Made that when I was 7. I made a card game that my sister and I would play all the time. It was called 5-Card War. And it was a spin on war. I didn't really like war because it was all luck, right?
Yeah.
You're just flipping up the cards, and then it took forever because the only way to get the aces out was to actually capture the other opponent's aces, and I just didn't like it. So I put a strategic twist on it where you draw 5 cards, and those are the 5 cards that you're going to use. And now you have a little bit of choice as to what you're going to play. And that made it a lot better. So I kept adapting and taking games that I saw or were inspired by and pulling them into things that I really wanted. And that was really how I designed games when I was a kid and when I was into my teenage years. It was only after that I really started developing, okay, well, what do other people really find fun? And then tweaking the game rules to really fit different types of markets.
So I know that you love board games, you love video games. When did you start getting into watching reality TV and getting into reality competition games as well?
Yeah, I'm a big fan of games of all types because I really love the idea that games are a microcosm of life. It gives you an experience that you can have nowhere else because of the rules and the sandbox that has been created for it. I liked board games because of that. It allowed you to use your mental acuity to just prove yourself to the other person. And I thought that was really fun. It also allowed for space for laughter and really fun times with the family. But the thing that really hooked me on reality television was that there weren't any turns. And that was an extremely alluring thing for me because I didn't see any board games that didn't have turns. I wanted something where nobody was bored at any point in time, where everybody was just like, go, go, go. So I fell in love with The Amazing Race when I was pretty young. Our whole family applied to be on The Amazing Race. We did not make it into casting.
Wait, did you apply for The Amazing Race family?
Yeah, we did.
My family applied for that too, where it was like 4 people. Yeah, I literally remember me and my parents like sitting at a Panera, and I'm like, you guys need to say this, because it was after I did endurance, and I was like coaching them with how to fill out their application. That's amazing.
I have a feeling you guys got farther than we did. I was a big fan of Amazing Race as a result, and then my mom, being ever creative, she decided that she didn't want to have normal birthday parties for my sister and I. She wanted to turn things up a notch and create essentially our own birthday party events. And because we were in love with The Amazing Race at the time, she was like, I'm going to make an Amazing Race party. And that blew my sister and I away, of course, and it became the most fun birthday party ever. The kids were talking about it all at school all the time. After about 4 or 5 years of that, I was in 8th grade. And at that time, I realized, like, my mom's pretty good at this, but she's kind of getting done with making these. And, we were getting a little bit old, and she was like, I can't keep up with you guys. And that's when I said, you know what, I'll take over. So I started making my sister's birthday parties, and that turned into my first business. So I started running Amazing Race birthday parties around the neighborhood for kids. And it was just an incredible time. My biggest one was 200 kids for charity over the course of 3 hours, and the thing ran itself. I did so much preparation work and so many logistics that I was able to literally just sit back and watch the whole thing go, and I didn't have to do a thing. And that was I was a junior in high school at that point.
Nice. So Nick, I am seeing behind you in your frame a game called Hail Hydra that we have played with you, and we've played a few games actually that you kind of were testing out during the process. I think Hail Hydra was already finished by the time we played it, but I know like Wakanda Forever and some other things you have used us as test subjects for. So Absolutely. How long have you professionally been doing that? How'd you get into it?
Yeah, I started my professional career in board games technically when I was 17. I had a board game licensed, Squashed. It's that cube one up there, right there. So I got that license when I was 17 years old. I entered a competition for the Chicago Toy and Game Fair. It was the Young Inventors Challenge. They still do it to this day. And that game got noticed by some people in the industry, and they liked it so much that they decided to license it. So that game ended up going worldwide, and it stayed on market to this day, which is super, super rare. But I'm pretty proud of that one, obviously. So I started there and met a lot of people in the industry, and then cold called my way into Spin Master, which is the 3rd largest toy and game company in the world. Thankfully, they were just a metro stop away from my college, so that worked out really well. But I worked at Spin Master for 6.5 years. I was an intern, then a game designer, then the new business something incubation specialist. I don't know. I forgot my own title. I was a game designer, frankly. And I got to work with some of the biggest brands and biggest licenses in the world, and it was an unbelievable experience. I got to work with Marvel, Warner Bros., and my biggest hit was Jumanji. So I did a ton of stuff there. I made so many games. I've probably got like 35-ish games in market, something like that.
I also remember us going to Comic-Con together when you were first promoting Hail Hydra.
Mm-hmm.
It was very fun, and you cosplayed as
Captain Hydra.
Captain Hydra. I'm like the Hydra guy.
It was really funny because Captain Hydra is the Hydra version of Captain America, right? And he first appeared in the comics, actually. And it was one of the most hated comics of Captain America of all time because no one can understand why they turned him into Hydra. What's the funniest part about this? I actually worked with the guy who wrote that issue about 8 years later. Because I was working with him in more of the video game realm. He had started a new company with a bunch of ex-Marvel writers, and he found me out of the blue, cold messaged me on LinkedIn, and that's how we got connected. I worked with him for about a year.
Wild. Well,
Great.
I met you through Dylan. So tell me how you and Nick met.
Yeah, well, so Nick and I met when we both were working on a little TV show called Survivor. We met in the Philippine jungles, testing challenges and building ridiculous things for those challenges, and kind of bonded over the fact that we were both huge nerds, including Survivor nerds. So
that was
Nick,
the biggest piece that I didn't understand. There was a lot of people that were working with us on our dream team, is what it was called, that didn't actually watch the show. And so Dylan and I, we obviously connected really quickly because we're like, this is the coolest thing ever. This is our dream job. This is awesome, right?
But I feel like, so I think you were 19 years old
Yeah.
when I met you on Survivor. It feels like you designed your first board game at 17. You worked on one of your favorite TV shows at 19. And then you got cast on this amazing new show. It seems like you kind of have this amazing ability to just will your desires to life. How do you do that? And how can the rest of us also do that?
Well, thank you. Appreciate that. I would say there is a pattern to this. And I've thought a lot about this. And at the risk of sounding cliche, I would say study Tony Robbins as much as you possibly can. That dude is incredible. He figured out the hacks to life. Some of the stuff that he says that really resonate with me is you have two decisions at any point in life, and they define your entire reality at all points in time. It's what you focus on and what it means. And what you focus on, obviously, is whatever's in your mind. And then what it means is the story that you tell yourself about what that thing is. And you have full control over that story, but oftentimes you don't take control of it. And I find that if you ever are feeling in a funk or something like that, remembering those two things actually does a lot of wonders. The second thing is, I really believe that belief is a very strong motivator, but belief is static without action. And you need to be able to take action as much as you can, because action increases your odds of success no matter what. Because you'll find out if your hypotheses are correct, you'll start learning more, or you might find another way to your goal. And that's why I don't really believe in goals. I believe in vectors. Goals give you a point, and then you're laser focused on getting to that point, and you remove anything else around you, and you become like zoned in, and you'll probably get that goal. But if you think about like a vector, that's a point of direction with force, right? If you're going towards something, you can find a lot of ways to get to that end because you're just going in a certain direction. And so I believe in setting vectors and then getting to those spots in whatever way possible. And I often try a bunch of stuff to make it there. And so that was actually how I got the thing on Survivor. I knew I wanted to, work around or be with Survivor in some way. Survivor became my favorite show when I was a senior in high school. And I was like, I need to find some way to be a part of this. And I didn't know anybody in reality television. I didn't have any contacts or anything. I was 18 years old. Like, I didn't really have a whole lot. But I decided, you know what? I have unlimited ammo and a lot of shots in the dark. So if I keep shooting, eventually I'm going to hit something, right? So every single day, I tried to ask somebody if they knew anybody or anything about Survivor. And I always made a way to bring it up in conversation. And I actually created an entire method for this. And the best way that I can describe this is the Wikipedia game. I don't know if you're familiar with the Wikipedia game. Nod your head if you are. Yeah? No?
It's like when you go from one, you have to get 2 points of Wikipedia, and you have to figure out how to get from one Wikipedia page to the next Wikipedia page, and whoever can do it the quickest wins.
It's 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon, but on Wikipedia.
Yeah.
So Keetin, do you know the general strategy of that game? Give me a guess.
Okay, my guess for that would be you kind of have to work. In my mind, I would probably work backwards. So I know where I'm starting. Okay, and then where do I need to go? So I would just try to find something like as similar as possible from the furthest point I needed to get to the first point, and kind of just work my way back in that way. And yeah, I don't know that I've never played the game, but that is like even the weirdest similarity. That's what I would look for.
And I did that in every conversation that I had for an entire year, where Survivor I knew was the goal I wanted to get to in the conversation. And I tried to pick a point that was equidistant from where I was and where Survivor was. And then I would work my way closer and closer to Survivor so that it came up naturally in the conversation. So it wouldn't be awkward when I was like, actually, do you know anybody who works on Survivor? Like, that's just kind of weird. But if it comes up naturally, that's amazing. So the themes of Survivor are being on an island, being on a TV show, adventure, right?
Yeah.
Vacation.
Yeah.
There's all types of themes that relate to it. So if you're in the summer, for example, it's actually really easy to get to Survivor because you can talk about islands and vacations and beachiness and incredible TV shows that you were seeing and places that you wanted to go. And these are all links that you can get there. And so when I was a senior in high school, I learned this skill, and then I started adapting it to my daily life in pretty much every field that I was in, which was superpower for sure.
So what was your final connection to Survivor then?
Yeah. So for an entire year, I searched, and I went to USC, and USC had a involvement fair at the Marshall School of Business. And so I was a freshman, and I was just going to sign up for my roommate for a bunch of random clubs just to annoy him. Thought it'd be funny. So I memorized his email address, and I went to this involvement fair, and I was just signing him up for
Nick?
It's awesome. I was just signing him up for all this crap. And I saw this one table. It was the Southern California Business Film Festival. And I was like, what the hell? I've done this every single day. Might as well do one more. So I walked up to them. I was like, do you guys know anybody? Reality television, blah, blah, blah. And they were like, actually, Mark Burnett is coming to campus in a week. And I was like, what? Are you kidding me? And for those of you who are uninitiated, Mark Burnett essentially created the show. He brought it over from the UK. And so obviously I knew that was a huge opportunity. So I got my resume and was trying to figure out where the thing was, because the people at the booth didn't know where the event was. So I was running around campus trying to ask a bunch of different professors if they knew anything about this random event. 4 days in, I did find out where this event was, but it was a private event. I was like, I got to figure out how to get in this event. And decided that I was probably going to sneak in, but then I found the professor, and then I asked him really nicely, can I please come? And he was like, yeah, okay, sure. And then I was forced to fail an accounting quiz because I was going to go to this event. They gave me a 0. Dicks. But, I got in the event.
Skip the class.
I was in the presentation. After the presentation was done, I run up to the front because we have a couple people that are going to ask some questions. There's like 5 people in front of me. I had this 5-minute pitch in my head of what I was going to say. Each person in front of me was taking 30 seconds, 30 seconds, 30 seconds. And I realized, holy crap, I need to condense my 5-minute pitch down to 30 seconds in the next 30 seconds. Go. And so, yeah, I did. And then 30 seconds later, I was face-to-face with Mark Burnett. And I was like, well, if everything goes wrong, I'm just back to square one. But yeah, fortunately, he heard what I had to say, and he took my resume, and he just kind of looked over the top of me at it. I was like, okay, well, maybe that didn't work. But the next day I got an email from John Kerhofer, who is the executive challenge producer on the show. And he was like, hey, Mark dropped me a line, said you were looking for a job on the dream team. Submit a video. We'll see what we can do. And that was the start of one of the coolest jobs of my entire life.
I had no idea, Nick, your in was Mark Burnett. I had no idea. Because it's so difficult to get a job on the dream team. And everybody's in is different. A lot of it is nepotism. It's just having a family member that it works on the show. So it's very hard to get in if you do not have that. And so you have to find, as Nick says, other ways to connect and to figure out how to get in there. And not all 3 of us, none of us are Nepo dreamers.
Yeah, you were my in.
But we weren't married at the time. We weren't even dating at the time. Actually, you were my ex-boyfriend at the time, but I kept a promise. And now we're married. So you had an in with Mark Burnett. You do Survivor for 2. You do the 2 seasons. And as I know, as long as I've known you, or at least for the past few years, you have told me, I want to be on reality TV. I want to be on reality TV. And in my mind, I'm like, well, you worked for reality TV. What do you mean you want to be on reality TV? And you're like, no, I'm going to do this, Keetin. How can I do this? I've worked in casting. We've talked about stuff, about your different shows you've applied for and stuff. So how did you now get to become a contestant locked in a house with some of the biggest reality television stars ever?
Consistent action, I would say, and pattern recognition. So a pretty deep understanding of what is looked for in types of contestants. I realized relatively quickly that, you have to play a part, and you have to make sure that your story wraps around that part consistently. But you need to show how your story relates to lots of people in the audience as well. And if you're able to do that, you'll get decently far in casting, but maybe you don't make it all the way. The thing that really takes you all the way, in my opinion, is having really that X factor that makes you stand out, really unique in some way that nobody else can compare to, but in a certain direction. So I'm not saying be the most amazing person ever, but know how you come across and pull out that X factor that makes you super unique and super you. And you're the only person that can be that. And then talk about how your life experience will assist you in whatever you're applying for, because that's what makes things relatable. And you want to be able to tell a story about how you as a character might change as well, which means you need to have some type of struggle. You need to have goals. You need to have, really, you need to have things that people will root for as well. So I've applied for a bunch of different shows. And every single time I applied, I got better, and I tried a different character on, which was pretty fun. So I've tried Super Evil Villain. I've also tried Crypto Bro. That was, I wore sunglasses the entire time. It was great.
I was like, you're not a Crypto Bro.
Yeah, and then the one for this one was just Ultimate Gamer, and that really hit. I applied with blue hair at the time, which really leaned into the character, obviously. And then I had this background too, so it was very gamer heavy, and so that resonated pretty strongly.
So, all right, during the casting process, did you wake up every morning and think, "I've got to get on, got to get out"?
We didn't even know the name of the show, actually.
Oh.
So it was pretty untitled, I think, for a while. I don't remember what the original temp name was either, but it was one of those things that I was like, it's probably a long shot. Like, no way, there's no way. But in the back of my head, I was really hoping. Went through a couple rounds of casting, and I was starting to feel like, oh wow, this could actually happen. The funniest part is they don't even tell you if you're an alternate or on the show. I didn't know. So even the day before going into the mansion, I didn't know if I was going to be on the show or not.
Really?
Oh my God. All right. Well, we're getting into talk of like the mansion and stuff. What is Got to Get Out? What, as much as you can say, what is the show? What is the structure? What can people expect from this show?
Yeah, you ready for this one? Lies and lunacy collide in an epic show of reality royalty versus reality rookies. In this show, 20 contestants will enter a mansion as strangers and live together for 10 days. Every second that they're in the mansion, $1 gets added to the pot for a total pot of $1 million. At random times, some people will be airdropped exit strategies, giving them a time and a location that a door will open, unlock, and allow you to escape the mansion and sprint past the front gates. If you can get past the front gates before anybody hits that big red button, you earn whatever's in the pot. And you can bring up to 3 accomplices with you. So who do you trust in this game of betrayal and heisting? Somebody named Doodles?
Nick, did you write this, or are you reading this off of something? Because that's incredible.
Well, I've only explained it 100 times, and I explain games for a living.
Yes,
so it's one of those things where, like, as soon as I understood what the show was about, I started formulating in my head, okay, how the hell am I going to describe this in the most, logical way possible? And then that whole intro bit, that's what all of the news articles have been saying. So I just pulled that in there right now.
Wait, well. So you're actually living in the house with these people?
Yeah. We did all live in the house together.
So you Nick, AKA Doodles, you're putting on like some type of a different persona, not exactly who you are.
Yeah, let's talk about Doodles for a second.
Let's talk about the dude.
What the heck is Doodles?
About him. Who is Doodles? So, what is Doodles?
Who is Doodles? That's the real question. I've never gone as Doodles before stepping foot in the mansion. It was the funniest thing. They didn't tell us the rules before going into the house, so I didn't know what I was signing up for. All I knew that it was going to be a social experiment for $1 million. $1 gets added to the pot, and you tried to escape. That's literally all we knew. We didn't know what was going to be involved. And so in my head, I've seen a lot of reality game shows, right? In all reality game shows, there's elimination and there's disadvantages. And I, as a game designer, did not want to be seen as a game designer, because as soon as you come onto a game as a game designer, you are the #1 threat. And I did not want that to be my legacy. And so I was like, all right, I got to not be a game designer. I mean, that's obvious, right? Like, okay, so what am I going to be? I need to be something super non-threatening that I can also pull off. So I thought about teacher, but I can't pull that off. So I was like, all right, well, the next best thing is probably artist, because I can pull that off, because it's, it's parallel to my life story, right? I became a game designer. I saw a lot of artists. I worked with a lot of artists. I know that process deeply. So if people ask me questions about it, I can give a lot of really good, insightful answers and keep that charade up. So I wanted to be an artist, and I was like, I need something to really push me over the edge, and something that will play really funnily on TV, right? It's leaning into that character a little bit more. And I was like, you know what? There's only one name, and I want everybody to be able to laugh whenever they say it, right? Because as soon as you laugh, it's immediately non-threatening. So I was like, yeah, my name is going to be Doodles.
Oh my God.
So Doodles finds himself day one in a house, and Doodles, aka super reality TV nerd Nick, in a house with some of the biggest reality television stars of all time. I mean, Omarosa is all I need to say, and that should just set the bar as high as it can be. What are you thinking?
Original TV villain.
Yeah, what is going through Nick's head, or Doodles' head, when you're looking around not only at your new competition, but the people that you will now be living with for the foreseeable game?
Yeah, the first thing that went through my head is, this is the coolest experience of my life. I cannot wait for what's about to show up. The second thing was, wow, I'm completely out of my league here. I need to start watching how they act and start matching that energy. And so that's actually what I did. I started watching Omarosa and Kim, and they put on a heck of a show. So I just started copying what they were doing, their energy, and started leaning into that aspect. And I actually learned a ton just by watching them. I got to say, Spencer Pratt, probably the funniest person I've ever met. That dude is hilarious, definitely lives up to the hype. And I actually adapted my comedy style based on watching him too, which was just a really cool experience. And I definitely felt the impact, coming back into my daily life, using some of his cadence and the way that he, used pauses. Like, it works. It was really funny.
So Spencer's just a mastermind.
Spencer is just hilarious. He's just a really funny guy. He's been around the camera so often, he's been around fame so often, that he just has this persona that it can't be replicated, because he's just lived such a unique life.
Yeah.
All right. So when a board game designer enters a reality competition show, are you immediately just like analyzing it, trying to like find the cracks? How do I do this? Like, is there a strategy from the very moment you step foot into that?
Yeah, absolutely. There's a strategy. So I know in my head, if I'm walking into a space with a mansion, there's probably stuff hidden around the mansion, right? So one of the first things that I'm going to do is look around the mansion. But the important thing to understand about these reality show games is, anytime I watch, say, Survivor, and people go off on their own and start looking for stuff, they're immediately made a target because they're freaking out. They're playing the game too hard. And so I wanted to make sure that I did not play the game too hard. I needed my first impression to be extremely strong in a certain direction. And Doodles was that first impression. I needed to be a little bit dopey, a little bit dumb, very reserved, kind of confused at all points in time, right?
Can you introduce yourself as Doodles right now? Be Doodles right now.
I'll just be like a little bit like Doodles right now, and so we could have like a conversation. And wait, where are you from again?
Stop, Nick! You did not do this the whole time. Oh my gosh! Oh my gosh!
Oh, you have no idea.
Like, I feel like people just only listening to this podcast can already tell you are such a like enthusiastic, high energy person. So I cannot wait to watch this persona of Doodles.
Yeah. And I leaned into that persona so much so that here's the thing. Because when you're going into the mansion, you have to travel there, and you're not alone, right? You're usually on some type of bus or something like that. That's true for all reality TV shows. And so from the moment I left my hotel room, I was Doodles. And that's how people were going to see me and perceive me. So in my head, I was always constantly thinking, okay, this is the way that you have to act. This is the way that you have to act. And I know just generally, first impressions mean a whole lot because that's what creates people's frames of you. And then they reference the frame oftentimes. And as long as the frame is congruent, then no issue. As soon as the frame is incongruent, then you have a really big problem. You start getting uncertainty and ambiguity, and that's when distrust appears. So as long as you have continuity, that's great. So the way to blend in my real personality is to start the frame in such a way and then slowly add in bits of my personality and make it act like I'm becoming more comfortable with everybody. And now once everybody's comfortable with me, then they see this more energetic side of me, and then I can blame it on being like, oh, well, yeah, I wanted to be more energetic for TV, right? But always trying to keep silent the extreme analytical stuff that was going on in my brain, or the fact that I was really good at math. I don't want anybody to know that I was good at math. So I always asked other people when math stuff came up, I was like, hey, I'm not really good at math. And I would explicitly say that just to reinforce the concept in everybody else's heads.
You terrify me. We've been friends for probably over 10 years at this point, and I'm like seeing a new, like, and we've played games against each other.
Yeah.
There's a new level. I'm like, Nick, I'm a little scared. But I love it.
Look, here's the thing. You can never hide your true personality for a really long time. There's just no way to do it effectively. True parts of yourself always tend to seep through, and so you can never have that in its entirety. And now with social media and everything being connected, like, you'd never be able to get away with it in real life. So it's something like this you can only pursue in a game like this where there's no social media or no outside contact. And so part of me was like, I wonder if I could do it. Like, I kind of wonder if that's possible. It's kind of fun. Let me see if I could try. But the downside of that is if you ever break and ever people find out, well, then trust is gone, like at all levels. And so, playing a dangerous game.
Ooh, I personally am so excited to watch this. I mean, so we love reality competition TV. It's kind of a comfort thing for us. We'll just, cozy up after work on these very couches and watch Survivor or Traders or whatever it is. Is this going to be a good comfort watch for us fans of reality TV?
Hey, look, I certainly hope so. I think the trailer was incredible. It was super fun to watch, and it really set a tone. I think one of the angles that they're going with, and don't quote me on this because I don't know. I think they're going more a comedic angle rather than a strategic angle. I don't know for sure. It's rough because I had a very strong strategy and I explained the strategy, I thought, very well, but there's a pretty large chance that they don't show any of that at all, and it's more of just a comedic thing, and the drama is hyped to the max. There's a lot of really funny stuff that happens on the show, so I wouldn't be surprised if that's the angle that they take. And I'm definitely a comedic act, sometimes unintentionally.
Who knew? I mean, you're like this method actor now. I'm like, oh my gosh, Nick, sign him up, get him an Emmy.
Right.
Let's go.
Let's go.
You're about to see a range of emotions you didn't even know existed in me.
What's Doodles' favorite board game?
Doodles may have tried playing Scrabble in the house. Ooh. And tried as hard as he could to lose, but may have done pretty well.
Oh no, Doodles!
No, you can't take the Nick Metzler out of the Doodles.
Yeah, it was tough. They also had a pool table in the mansion, and there was one point where I cleaned the table.
Oh my God.
And I was just like, gotta pull this back.
All right. So one thing that we do on this show is, rather than spilling the tea, which we've kind of got a little bit of tonight, we also sip the hot cocoa, where we share something that we found recently that made us feel warm and fuzzy, made us feel optimistic, like, life's going to be okay. And we always like to ask our guests, do you have any hot cocoa that happened to you recently, or just that you want to share with us and our audience?
Well, that's nice. I was in Australia recently, and I was hanging out with some wallabies. They're the cutest little things. They're tiny kangaroos. And there was just a bunch that were just hanging out on the front yard. So I got to hang out with like 30 different wallabies. And then also on the trip, I guess this is not so much hot cocoa, but I went scuba diving in the open water at night with about 30 sharks.
Oh, that is so hot cocoa for me. When we finish, I'm just going to need to hear all about that, because that is literally my dream experience.
No, I would do that. I would do that in the daylight, but we did a night dive on our anniversary trip, and
Ooh.
scuba diving, and it was a new moon, so it was pitch black.
Awesome.
Scuba diving at night, as cool as it is the most unsettling thing I have ever experienced in my life.
But it's so fun.
I
love
wouldn't
it.
call it fun. I would say I'm happy I did it. I'm proud of myself, but that is not a feeling that you want longer than the 45 minutes.
What you should do is try it again, but add 30 sharks.
Nope.
You could.
You're right, I could, but I don't need to. I don't have to. I've got nothing to prove here. So Nick,
that's what I got for hot cocoa. Sorry.
That's great hot cocoa.
Actually,
We love wallabies.
I got one that's kind of cool. All right, so the Aboriginals in Australia, Northern Australia, they ate crocodile before they ate chicken, and so when they tasted chicken, they were like, it tastes like crocodile, which is kind of funny because everybody tastes crocodile. And they're like, it tastes like chicken. But yeah, for that was
I like how you said everybody tastes crocodile. Like, oh yeah, we've all had crocodile.
Yeah, crocodile,
right?
you know?
There you go.
Nick,
yeah, it's just a little bit more slimy than chicken, but pretty similar taste, a tiny bit more sour. Yeah, generally pretty good.
You know, I just realized why you two are friends. Like, oh my gosh, those are the most Dylan hot cocos I've ever heard in my life. Minus the wallabies.
True. What wallabies are just like dogs.
I know,
that
but
jump.
I love wallabies. I'm saying that's why me and Nick are friends, is the wallabies.
Oh,
but
okay.
yeah. So Nick, this is your time. What cool things do you have coming up?
All right, I got 3 cool things, 3 of them. The first one, I'm launching a Kickstarter, and this is going to be the first Kickstarter that I've ever run. I'm running it with a partner organization called Lethal Chicken Games. They're producing the game. They're going to be shipping the game. They're managing the whole production process. I just want to get them a lot more business, and so we're co-running it together, and I really hope it works. We're trying to raise $50,000, which is a lot, but if we raise it, that would be pretty sweet. And the game is called Sketchy Doodles. I made it because of, my experience on the show. And it's a social deduction drawing game where you don't actually have to be good at drawing. You just need to be good at being sketchy. It's super, super fun. It takes 1 minute per round. So it's really fast. You can play the entire game in like 10 minutes. Very replayable. And there's so many different levels to it like you wouldn't expect. For example, you pass out a bunch of cards. 2 people are going to be sketchy. Everybody else, they know a secret word. And they're looking at the secret word on the table, and they all have to draw the secret word. But here's the kicker. At the end, when time runs out after 20 seconds, everybody will vote on who they think is sketchy. So you actually benefit if you get other people to think that you're sketchy, because then they're wasting their vote on you, which means they're not getting points. So there's this whole new layer of strategy to being like, oh, maybe I should act sketchy. But if you act too sketchy, then nobody votes for the sketchy player, and then they make off with a ton of points. So it's this really fun balance where you're trying to manage this. Oh, and also the really fun thing about this game is everybody doodles in full view of each other at all points in time. So everybody's looking at what everybody else is drawing. And so the sketchy players are peeking over, seeing what you're drawing, and then they draw the same thing. So if you just draw a line, because that's all you need to draw to convince everybody that you know what the word is, well, then the sketchy player just draws a line as well. And it's just the funniest thing.
All right, I would really like to play test this next time I see you.
It's great. So yeah, that'll be on Kickstarter the week of the show. Also, I've been doing a ton of work to really codify my entire board game process. So how to get a game from an idea into actual production. And I put all of that information and condensed it down to a really in-depth 10-hour digital course, which I'm going to be releasing as well the week of the show. It's essentially my experience through designing games in life, and I've condensed it into a really, really concise and understandable package that a lot of blood, sweat, and tears went into that, a lot of hours. The script for that was an insanely long one. And then I put together a 60-page workbook along with it, created transcripts for every single lesson as well. It's 13 different lessons. And yeah, it's a beast, but it's super, super cool. So that's your master resource if you ever want to figure out how to design a game. And there's a 40-minute free preview as well, which will get you to the prototype. So I speed through essentially the first 5 lessons to get you to a prototype really, really fast.
That's amazing.
Sounds amazing for anyone who wants to learn how to design board games.
So what you have one more little thing that's happening, Nick. What's happening?
I wondered if you were going to remember that I had one more thing. I do, and that is to say, go watch Got to Get Out Friday, April 11th, only on Hulu.
Are you Jack Probst? I'm so excited, Nick. I'm so proud of you. It's been incredible to watch your journey and also just watch you build your career since I met you when you were 19. And I just can't wait. If you've done this much and this many years, I can't even imagine what the next 5 years are going to look like for you. So,
Oh yeah, I'm only getting started. This is just the beginning.
And
I love it.
Nick, one last thing is if people really loved listening to you or maybe just really enjoyed listening to Doodles, where can they follow you?
Yeah, great question. I'm on all social media, TikTok and Instagram as Nick Metzler 1. That's 1 as in the number, not as in I won the game or anything like that. Don't get it confused. I'm also on Twitter, but that is much more for video gamey crypto stuff. So if you care about that, you can listen to me there, but most people don't. I'm on LinkedIn as well if you're boring. Facebook if you're old. Yeah, you can catch me elsewhere, I guess. You can find me in New York. I'll be around. And then, yeah, of course, you can catch me on Hulu, too.
Love it. Thank you so much. I think
I think that's everything. Nick, thank you so much for coming on. And we cannot wait to watch you on April 11th.
Yeah.
It was great channeling Hallmark with you guys.
That was our interview with Nick Metzler. And that is our episode. If you liked it, or honestly, even if you didn't, subscribe. But also, leave a rating, leave a review. Let us know why you did or didn't like it. We want to hear your thoughts. Keetin, what else should people do?
Yeah, and if you guys want to follow us on the socials, you can follow us across all social media, Instagram, YouTube, Blue Sky, at Channeling Hallmark, and each of our individual social medias on Instagram at least, at DP Cashball and at Keetin Markey. We're going to post a lot of really fun content, behind the scenes content from this particular interview, so get excited.
Yeah, if you aren't already following us on YouTube, I'm trying to enjoy that world of YouTube Shorts a little bit more. So check us out on there, particularly if you like videos with dogs in them, because I kind of only post dog videos there. So.
Yeah. Well, and we have some more for you reality TV fans out there. There'll be some fun content with Nick with some more kind of gotta get out insight. So check it out.
And in the meantime, don't forget to channel Hallmark in your lives.
Stay cozy, y'all. Bye-bye.
Channeling Hallmark is an independently produced podcast and is neither sponsored nor sanctioned by Hallmark or any other entity. Thank you for listening.